My name is Lawrence Moore. I'm a professor here at the University of Glasgow, and I've been leading the PHASE network funded by UK PRP to promote population health agent-based simulation. And I'm delighted that for today's webinar, the latest in our series of webinars, that we've got two excellent presentations coming along, both on a theme of employment, welfare and health, where agent-based models have been used. Before I introduce the first speaker, I'll just flag up that we do have two further webinars coming along. So those of you who aren't aware of these and think you might be interested, then please do register through the PHASE network website there, or if you've heard about this, you might have an email about this somewhere in your inbox. So risk factors for cardiovascular disease, focus of presentations from Liverpool and Warwick on the 6th of June. And on the 12th of June, presentations from the US and Sheffield on using agent-based models to explore food behaviour and food and obesity research. So that's just flagging up those forthcoming events. Today, this is what we're focusing on: employment, welfare and health, insights from agent-based models. I'll just stop sharing my screen so that Patryk can share his. So over to you, Patryk, to try and share your screen. It's my very great pleasure to introduce Patryk. Patryk is a senior research officer at the University of Essex, where he's based at the Institute for Social and Economic Research. He's recently published work on simulations for life course analysis and on welfare benefits, and he's part of one of the teams who has received pump priming funding from PHASE for agent-based modelling work. So I think without further ado, Patryk, I'll hand over to you just to let people know. Each of the speakers will speak for around about 20 minutes, and then we'll do questions after each one. So we'll hear from Patryk and then take some questions on Patryk's presentation, and then we'll move on to the second presentation from Umberto. Please do put your questions into the chat as you go along, and then when we get to the Q&A session, we can look at those, or you can put your hand up to ask questions then as well, because we're not in the so let's see how that goes. So, yeah, so do put your answers into chat, or the Q&A. Sorry, the Q&A is probably the best place to put your questions, so we can manage them better. So please put your questions into the Q&A. Thank you, and then I'll make sure they're covered. So sorry for that confusion. Please use the Q&A for questions. Right, over to you, Patryk, for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for organizing this and inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Patryk Bronka, and this is a joint project with Mateusz Ikiardi, Deborah Schofield, and Mina Kumashi. And I'm going to present what we call NCDESim, which stands for Non-Communicable Disease and Employment Simulation. And this is an agent-based model of health and employment. And what I'm going to show you is an overview of the project. I'm going to talk a little bit about what motivated us to engage in this research question. I'm going to explain how we developed and specified the model and coded the model, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the some early results that we have obtained from this project. So what motivated us to engage in this project was the following. We've noticed that mental health disorders affect a large number of individuals in the UK, and in the literature this is reported to be 16% of adults, and chronic pain affects even more people, and this is at least 43%, and is projected to increase further as the population ages. Both of these non-communicable diseases have a high direct cost due to the cost of providing health services and their impact on the quality of life, but they also have large indirect costs because of their effects on employment. And estimates from UK and Australia point to almost $9 billion lost in the UK due to mental health effects on productivity, and 0.7% of GDP in Australia because of the costs of chronic pain, which is about 6 billion. At the time, it was about 6 billion pounds as well. We've also observed that these costs that are linked to employment are unequally distributed. Women and unemployed individuals are more likely to have mental health issues, and socioeconomic status is correlated with prevalence of chronic pain. And in terms of the literature that exists in the field of public health and economics, in public health, the link between mental health and employment has been studied quite extensively, but the modeling goes from exploring the effect of mental health issues on productivity, job choice, and non-employment. While in economics, the effect has typically been studied the other way around, and research tries to quantify the effects of labor market outcomes on health. So, for example, what is the effect of job displacement on mortality or health? Sorry. Having said that, we believe that there are interactions and feedback loops between health and employment, and that their existence warrants joint modeling of these two. Therefore, in this project, we consider the coevolution of health and employment outcomes, and we propose to link the two by what we refer to as amenities, and these are non-monetary characteristics of jobs. And I'm going to talk about them a little bit more in a second. In terms of how we implemented the model, we have used a Jasmine framework, which is a Java library that we have developed for microsimulation modeling. And this allows for easy implementation of various agent-based and microsimulation models. In case anyone was interested, we would be happy to discuss this further, but it's all open source and available on our website, which is the first link. So, and now I'm going to talk about the model that we have implemented in this project, and maybe a couple of caveats first. As I said at the beginning, socioeconomic status is definitely correlated with health. And this is something that we accept in this project. However, this is something that we do not attempt to model. What we focus on in this project is what we refer to as a toy model of health, employment, and this linkage of amenities, and we focus on the mechanism through which they are linked, and on the outcomes of complex interactions between employees and firms. We abstract from socioeconomic status and its effects on health here. So our economy is populated by single worker firms, and each firm offers a wage that we denote with W and amenities A. All individuals in the model engage in job search, and they care about two things. They care about income and health. So the utility function that individuals have is a function of wages and health. And this is what is referred to as a Cobb-Douglas utility function. So it's a product of these two to the power of alpha and 1 minus alpha. And in the default parametrization, we use alpha equal to 0.5. Profits, and this describes the main mechanics of the model, is that profits depend on workers' productivity and wages and cost of amenities that firm has to pay to attract workers. In turn, productivity depends on health, and health depends on age and amenities. So you can see that the three things here are linked in the model, and this is how this describes the main dynamics. So firm strategies in the model is the choice, well, So each firm provides a level of wages and amenities, and these are assigned at the beginning when a firm is created, and they do not change over time. However, we do study strategies of firm that are allowed to evolve over time, and we model this evolution through natural selection. How this happens is that we clone firms that enter the model, and in this parametrization we clone 90% of firms, and we select firms that are used as the original firm for the clone, proportionally to the profits that they achieve in the market. So what this implies is that more profitable firms are more likely to be cloned, and the population of firms in the model evolves and adjusts through this natural selection. Individuals in the model enter simulation when they are age 20, and they are in perfect health and have full productivity. And they exit simulation when they either reach the age of 60 or they become completely ill. Each individual has a reservation wage R, which can be thought of as, for example, level of benefits that is provided, and that gives them a level of utility below which they will not work. Health of individuals decays with age, but is improved by amenities. The decay of health is controlled by a parameter gamma, and we model it in the following way. Health in a current period is equal to the health in the previous period minus the value of the health decay that depends on age and that parameter gamma, plus the level of amenities that they obtained in their job. And this is between 0 and 1. This is constrained between these two values. And productivity is reduced by poor health. So productivity is a square root of health. Just to visualize how this looks, on the left-hand side we can see the value of the health decay that we subtract from health when it evolves, and we can see that it increases in health, in age, and it increases in this health decay parameter gamma. So older individuals lose a higher proportion of their health each period. And on the right-hand side, we can see the value of utility function. And as I said, this is a typical Cobb-Douglas utility function where essentially it increases on the diagonal. So you want to have more of both health and wages. And this leads to the following choice of individuals. Some individuals would prefer to obtain an additional unit of amenities, and some individuals would prefer to obtain an additional unit of wages. In this table, we set wages fixed to 0.5, and we just visualize a choice for different levels of amenities and different levels of health. And whenever you see a green cell in the table, it means that individual with that level of health and amenities would prefer to obtain an additional unit of wages instead of, an additional unit of amenities instead of an additional unit of wages. So the marginal utility of amenities is higher than the marginal utility of wages for such an individual. And what we can see here is that it is individuals who are in poor health between 0 and 0.4 and or with a low current level of amenities who would prefer to obtain more amenities, and otherwise individuals would prefer to obtain more wages. Firms in our model have profits that are equal to the productivity of worker, given that we have single worker firms, minus the level of wages, minus the level of amenities they provide. The cost of a unit increase in amenities is the same as a cost of a unit increase in wages. However, firms recover part of the cost of providing amenities through increased productivity. This means that firm would always prefer to offer more amenities. However, there is a caveat that offering amenities attracts low health, low productivity workers. As we've seen in the previous graph, they are the ones who would prefer more amenities over wages. And this leads to the dynamics in the model that we will see some of them in the results section. The exit condition is such that firms without employees or with negative profits exit the market, and each period a pre-specified number of firms, in this model 20, enter the market. And as I already mentioned, the strategies of these new firms are partly random and partly copied from incumbent firms. And in this specification, 90% of new entrants copy strategies of existing firms with probability proportional to profits, and that's how they evolve over time. So the default parametrization that we use in this model is as follows. We have 20 individuals and 20 firms entering every period. 90% of newly entering firms clone other firms. The remaining 10% is created with random values. The health decay parameter gamma is equal to 0.45. So we are about in the middle of the health decay parameter, and the decay increases with age. The parameter alpha on the Cobb-Douglas utility function is equal to 0.5. We use a reservation wage 0.1. So this is the level of sorry, this actually should say reservation. No, yeah, it's fine. So this generates a level of utility below which individuals will not work in the model. And we have on the job search, which allows employed individuals to look for a better job, and different search intensity between employees and unemployed individuals. Unemployed individuals sample more jobs than employed ones.
5 minutes, Patryk.
Thank you. Yes. So that concludes the description of the model. And now in terms of the results that we see, the most interesting one is that we observe cycles being generated by this model. So on the left-hand side of this slide, you can see the evolution of the level of amenities and wages in the model over time. And you can see that there is so the red line is amenities, and you can see that there is a cycle of an increase in the average level of amenities, kind of a boom, followed by a crash in amenities, and the cycle repeats. And this is correlated with the level of health in the model. Whenever the level of amenities in the model is high, health is high. Whenever it is low, health decreases as well. Now we looked into the type of firms that leave the market in different parts of this cycle, and so here we kind of think about two distinct parts of the cycle: the high amenity part and the low amenity part. And we see that the behavior in the model and the outcomes are different in each part of this cycle. And amenities are also here correlated with wages, although because of a different level of both, that is not so obvious from this graph. So we see that in the high amenity cycle, firms tend to leave because they cannot hire employees, and they become too small, and they have no employees. While in the low amenity part of the cycle, there is the profit condition that comes into play as well. And in general, and we are still working on analyzing the data, but what we are seeing is that the outcomes in the high amenity part of the cycle appear to be better overall than in the low amenity part of the cycle in terms of health, in terms of utility. And the question for us to work on is to think about different policy specifications that can be introduced in the model that would keep this system in this high amenity state. And two other things that we are going to explore is to consider.
Patryk, can I just briefly, because a few people who joined late didn't hear you define what you meant by amenities. So could you just read?
Sorry, yeah, I should. Thank you. So what we refer to as amenities in this model is any non-monetary characteristic of a job that a firm can provide. And there can be different examples. So you could think about something like gym being provided on site or flexible leave. But I think a very good example that actually came up in the presentation in Glasgow was of health insurance. For example, if you think about the US market, you might have a job that provides very good health insurance that you rely on, but it might be that you are somehow stuck in this job, even if it pays lower wages than what you could get in the market because of your reliance on that amenity. And then maybe your choice between wages and amenities is somehow constrained, and this leads to sorting between different types of employers and employees that's rely on. And just to conclude this presentation, what we are going to think about next in terms of this model is considering effects of different policies on outcomes, as I already mentioned, but also in terms of subsidies for amenities, considering a scenario where we remain budget neutral and this is paid for by tax on employees' incomes. And we're going to make individuals to be future looking, because at the moment they consider their contemporaneous utility of having a job with some level of wages and amenities, but we would like to make them think not only about the current time period, but 5 or 10 periods ahead. And this is important because amenities that you get in the job have an effect on your health, and they add up over time, and the job that you choose today might have an effect on the level of health that you will have in 10 periods, for example, and what jobs might be available to you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Patryk. Great presentation. We don't have any questions in the Q&A. If you do have questions, please do pop them in the Q&A. Right, so we do have one. You can probably see it, Patryk, but I'll just so others. The first one is the question. I'm curious about the assumption that amenities improve health. As a chronic pain sufferer myself, I find that reasonable adjustments in the workplace enable more stability in my condition, but not improvement. Will this assumption be adjusted in the future to reflect the realities of specific conditions?
Thank you. So that's a very good question, and I think until now we've focused primarily on the mechanics in the model, and the parametrization here is still a little bit of an open question. So this type of feedback is really great for us, and we will definitely take it into account and try to parameterize the model in a different way as well, and kind of stress test this assumption. I think I think that is something that we will explore more.
Yeah, you can add that to your list of things to do. Next, the question I had, I mean, again, this is something you did mention at the beginning of the talk, is linking this to some extent to health inequalities and the distribution in a sense. So I would have thought that people with lower incomes, for example, I'm speculating, but would you be able to model the fact that at different levels of income, there might be a variation in terms of how much wages are important as opposed to amenities. I would imagine that might be a non-linear, non-constant and non-linear kind of relationship. Is that something you would be planning to look at, or maybe you've looked at it already?
I think it would be a very interesting development for this model. It's not something that we have considered for this project, and that's kind of why I preface this presentation by saying that this socioeconomic gradient and its linkages to health is not something that we explore here, more focusing on the mechanics. But in principle, the way we set up the model would allow us to consider different types of individuals easily and different types of firms. And from the beginning, the idea was that we further down the line, we might be able to add different types of individuals and different types of firms that behave in a different way. So I think within the constraints of this specific project, of the FACE project, at the moment, we wouldn't have the capacity to add this. But in context of the model itself is set up in a way that would allow this, and I think this is something that personally I would find very interesting, a very interesting addition to the model. Yes.
Thanks, Patryk. And one other question we've got in the Q&A. What is your strategy in translating your findings to real-world policy?
Right. So as I said, we are at the stage where we have some early results from the model, and we are going to explore this further. And for example, what we are seeing now is that, well, what our toy model tells us is that you would prefer to keep this system that in this high amenity state. We are going to try to think about policies that might be helpful for that. I mean, I think the caveat that applies to all of this is that this is a toy model. So this is not a type of a model that we often do in other work, for example, for the tax policy analysis, where we are going to come up with very precise, quantifiable suggestions for changes in the policy. Having said that, we have established an advisory group for this project that is composed of individuals from, for example, Public Health Scotland and other third sector institutions, and we are going to organize a meeting, and we are going to discuss the findings of this data analysis and these different policies that we are going to kind of try to model here with them. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. And I have a hand up. Deb Shipton, you have your hand up. I'm not sure whether you can speak. You might be able to speak now if you want to speak, Debs. If you
I think I've been unmuted. Is that right?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Excellent. Hi, Patryk. Thanks. That was really interesting. So, am I right in thinking? I can't quite. So, your desire for amenities was related to either lower productivity or lower desire for wages. There was a relationship between that, and I was just wondering. I can't quite remember which way around it was. Was that an assumption, or was that based on data? And if it was an assumption, how did you reach it?
So this model at the moment is not parameterized to the data. So this is more on a theoretical side of exercise on the theoretical side, where we haven't estimated this model on the data. I think you refer to the table that I've shown where for some individuals the marginal, the benefit in terms of utility that they were gaining from an additional unit of amenities was exceeding the benefit they would have obtained from an additional unit of wages. Is that the part that you have in mind? Yes. So this was kind of just so this was similar to this other graph that I've shown for the health decay and for the utility function. This was just to illustrate how the value of utility essentially evolves according to the function that we specified in the model, and to given some level of inputs into that function, what individual decision it would lead to.
Yeah, no, that's useful, I guess. So it's a proof of concept, and then you could layer on what you. Okay, brilliant. I get that. That's lovely.
It is.
That's really
so all these parameters that so we have a number of parameters in the model, and yes, one way would be to estimate their values in a data, or calibrate them from the literature, for example, but that will require some further work to do that.
Okay, that's great. That's brilliant. I'll probably try and get back in touch with you about that. That's lovely. Thank you.
Sure, that would be great.
So that's great. Well, thanks ever so much, Patryk, and thank you for those who asked questions. And it's now time to move on to our second speaker. So Umberto, if you'd like to attempt to share your screen. I'm pleased to introduce Umberto, a colleague of mine here in Glasgow. He joined us in 2017, having previously studied economics at the University of Bologna. He's now working as part of the Complexity and Health Improvement Programme here as part of our complex system science work stream, in which he develops agent-based models of socio-economic systems to improve our understanding of how demographic, social and economic factors interact to determine trends in public health.
The title of this presentation is Growing a Semi-Artificial Population for Public Health Simulations, and I'll show an application for informal social care provision. This is called we called it the generative approach to the generation of synthetic populations. There are currently two mainstream approaches to synthetic population described in Chapuis's this paper here, and the one is called synthetic reconstruction, and the other combinatorial optimization. The first creates agents with characteristics sampled from known joint distributions, and the second one creates copies of real agents which are sampled so to reproduce the empirical joint distribution. These techniques try so to recreate a copy or a description of the real world population. So we call they can be thought as descriptive approaches. The generative approach, on the other hand, aims not just to describe, but to explain the emergence of the demographic and socioeconomic structure of real population, which is the philosophy of agent-based modeling, basically creating system from the bottom up. The empirical input of this approach is minimal, like fertility and mortality rates, and the emphasis of this approach is on the behavioral processes driving the agent's life course events. This approach has some advantages. It allows us to assign characteristics and attributes to artificial agents for which there is a lack of empirical data, but we may consider important to include in our model. And so by focusing on theory, we can mitigate the problem of the lack of data. And also it allows us to reproduce aspects of the population structure which may be important to include, but can hardly be reproduced through statistical techniques because of their complex nature. I'll show an example of that later on in the form of social care kinship networks. And also it allows us to take into account the effect of agents' behavior on demographic and socio-economic structure of the population. On the other hand, that in order to adopt this approach, we need to have sound behavioral theories. So if we don't have them, if we use unsupported behavioral assumptions, then of course we will get results which are too uncertain or with little reliability. The generative model tries to simulate the agent's life course. So starting from fertility rates drawn from the human fertility database, agents become adult at 16 and can enter the workforce or continue the education, can form partnership with other agents, and at the age of 65 they retire and start receiving a pension, and then eventually they die according to rates, mortality rates, which are drawn from human mortality database. After finishing their education, agents enter the workforce. Their salary is a function of their socio-economic status, which is associated with their education level. And in our model, we have 5 distinct socio-economic status groups following the approximated social grade produced by the Office for National Statistics. And higher socioeconomic status is associated with lower mortality and fertility rates and the lower probability of developing health conditions such as care needs. And an intergenerational mobility process allows agents to move to different socioeconomic status groups from the one of their parents. Then in the model also we can have a relocation process. Agents leave their parental home due to entering the workforce or starting a partnership. When partnership dissolves, the male agent move elsewhere, and dependent children stay. We assume they stay with the mother. A family may relocate to another town depending on the size of family and the length of their stay in their current town. Retired agents with care need may move into adult child household with probability which is proportional to the care supplied by that household. And we calibrated recently in the last few months this model, and we used the Monte Carlo approximate Bayesian computational method to calibrate the model against a set of empirical distributions, like the UK population age pyramid in 2020, the distribution of UK households by size in 2021, the distribution of ages of women giving birth in 2020, the distribution of differences between the age of men and women forming partnership. We use the data for 2017 from France because these were the data that we had. And so we can see from this, I'll go pretty quickly here, and then from these 4 empirical data set that the simulation we are still working on the calibration actually, but so far we got encouraging results. The population age distribution is reproduced pretty well. The household size distribution as well, apart from households of size 4, which is a little bit low. The distribution of mother age is also pretty good, and the distribution of couple age difference, the mode is fine, although there, of course, as you can see, is left-tailed. We have to work on that. So I'll show now very quickly, if I have time, I'm not sure, but an application of this demographic of this population model, the social care model. Social care, which is the provision of personal medical care for people in need of assistance for age, disability, and other factors. demographic trends are leading to an increase in all industrialized world in demand for social care. For example, in the UK, nearly 50% of people aged 25 or more are living with a long-term limiting health condition. 14% of adults aged 65 to 69 need help with daily living activities. And the 5% of UK population did not receive sufficient care in 2017. And from 2010 to 2017, the number of people with unmet care needs increased by 48%. And in social care provision, a big role is that of informal social care. Around 80% of social care provided in the UK is represented by informal social care. Around the value is around 100 billion per year, 5% of GDP, 10 times the value of social care provided by the state.
5 minutes to go, Umberto.
5 minutes, yeah, okay. So I'll skip this data. So an important part of the model is the kinship network, because a lot of informal care happen through the kinship network, and this is basically the reason why was useful for us to use the generative approach, because it allowed us to reproduce the kinship network, which are networks of households containing at least one member with a kinship relation to a certain agent. We can have different distances in this network. Agent distance 0, the agent's own household. Distance 1, agent parents and children living elsewhere. Distance 2, grandparents, grandchildren, and so on. And so they, when people with age, as they age, they develop some social care condition, social care need, and which depends on age, socio-economic status, and gender-specific probabilities. And and they have also can count on the supply of care from their kinship network, which can provide informal and formal care. The care supply depends on the stage of life, closeness of kinship relation, geographical distance. And we introduced recently in the model also childcare, which is an important part of the model, because households need to allocate their available resources both to social care and childcare. Of course, I'll go fast here because we are running out of time. Anyway, I add just that social care and child care have very different characteristics, because, for example, usually child care can be supplied on a one-to-many basis, differently from social care. And basically, agents can take time off work to provide informal care. That depends on their hourly wage compared to the cost of formal care. And so we run some simulation. We can run some simulation to show the evolution of social care through time. We can see the total social care need increases, and also the average social care delivered per week increases up to the year 2040. But these are just demonstrative results, just to show the potential of the model. And so the unmet social care need increases also, quite increasing from the year 2000. And I don't know how much time do I have, but anyway, I had a couple of more slides to show the policy, some policies.
2 minutes.
Sorry?
2 minutes.
Oh, okay. So we ran policy to see the effect of 4 policies: 80% government contribution to cost of childcare, up to from 20%, 3 hours of childcare per week increased from 20 to 32. Policy 3, publicly funded social care available for a lower level of care need. and a new contribution scheme providing 50% of social care costs. And we can see the effects of these 4 policies. We can see the unmet social care need decreases, especially for the policy 4, and although of course this is the most expensive policy, and it also we can show also some spillover effects, like the hours of work provided to provide care, which is greatly reduced with policy 4. So to conclude, the generative approach is a valuable tool to develop models of complex socioeconomic systems. It may be a good alternative to the traditional descriptive approaches when we model phenomena whose time frame is measured in decades. The model simulates policy which may affect demographic and socioeconomic behavior, the structure of the society through the behavior of agents. And the model includes variables for which we have scarce or no empirical data. Although it is a theory-driven approach, so the model development involves an interdisciplinary collaboration between behavioral experts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Umberto. We don't have any questions in the Q&A, and I'm just looking at the chat. So does anyone have a question for Umberto? I'll kick off. I mean, that looks like an amazing platform to look at all sorts of different policies, you know, economic policies and other kind of policies, and how that might impact on the demand, but also for social care and the supply of informal social care. And therefore, the critical thing, I guess, for the government is the lack of money for the formal social care that's required for the gap between the informal social care supply and the demand. So I'm just wondering what you're doing in terms of speaking with different kind of policymakers, both in Scotland or maybe UK level, where a lot of the policy handlers are, to explain to them that you've got this model and what kind of different policy scenarios are of interest to them to look at, either through how the model is now or through further development.
Before the pandemic, we had a series of meetings with the Scottish government, actually, and with Eric, and we went also in Edinburgh to Eric had a presentation, and they were very much interested. But then the COVID came, and of course the priority shifted, and actually after that, we have to start. We have to reach out to them again, but there was an interest, in this model for sure from the Scottish government.
Thank you. Any other questions? I mean, I guess my next question. So I hope that's obviously an important dimension. I guess the other thing is, what is it from your point of view? You know, you and the academic team. What are the next developments you're thinking you might include in the model, either the scenarios you'll look at or adding further aspects to how you generate the populations, as you say?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of ways to improve. First, to improve the model. I mean, we are now translating a previous Python version, and we are including an economic module where we have unemployed people and unemployment, which is also different by ages, by socioeconomic class. And we have also, in the latest version, we have the working shifts. So in order to include like unsociable hours, which may make things more difficult for some categories of workers. that have to conjugate, to put together their working shifts with childcare and even social care duties, responsibilities. And so there are a lot of ways that we are improving this model, and the application can, of course, go beyond social care, such as mental health. We are exploring now the possibility to use this model for mental health, because we know that things happening, also the social care burden, for example, can have an effect on
Right. Thanks, Umberto. And so I'll just interrupt you briefly, because there is one question in chat from Michael Wolfson. So he's asking, how did you model the dynamics of disability? Were there any longitudinal data used? And then he follows up, what about the compression or expansion of morbidity and functional limitations, I guess, over time?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't go in that detail so far to include morbidity. But as for the social care, basically there is a statistical. We have had some empirical data. So basically, from a statistical point of view, as agents age, they have some probability to develop a mild social care need, and then from there go into more severe levels of social care needs, and eventually they end up in a hospital. But we didn't include specifically other illness, other problems.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Umberto. Apologies to everyone for the technical difficulties at the beginning of Umberto's presentation. Thank you to both speakers and to all of you attending, and particularly those of you asking questions. I've just popped up on the screen there the slide of the two forthcoming webinars, the final two webinars in our series. So do please look out for those if they are of interest to you. So other than that, I'll draw things to a close. Thank you very much to both speakers and to all of you for attending. Thank you.